Good morning. So today we're going to get started on our heat pump install here in the woodworking shop. We have what we believe is everything we need over here to do this job. We have all of our tools in the other room, which we'll show you as we go. So we're going to bring you in and we're going to show you what we actually have, why we chose what we chose, and then we're going to bring you along as we actually install the pieces and parts, do the electrical vacuum system down. So hang on for a second, we're going to get you zoomed in here where you can see what we've got, and we're going to explain to you what we've purchased and why we purchased that. Okay, so what we have here is a 12,000 BTU Mr. Cool Advantage heat pump. We did not go with the DIY heat pump, mostly because of availability. It was back ordered for a couple months. This one was in stock, and we have the tools to vacuum down a refrigeration system. The downside to this one versus the DIY one is this one does have to be vacuumed down, but we'll show you how to do that. It's not a terrible job to do, and we have all the tools. So what we have here is, like I said, we have the outside unit on the left, we have the indoor unit, and then the rest of the parts. So I'm going to go ahead and swing around here so you can see it, and get in here and show you what we've got. So we have our outdoor unit. This goes outside. We have our electrical disconnect. This needs a 240 volt 20 amp circuit. We have our circuit breaker. We have some wire. We have our liquid tight to go from the disconnect to the unit. So these parts here didn't come with the unit. The unit comes with the outside unit, the inside unit over here. That's the head that goes inside. It comes with the tubing, the tube line set, if you will. The drain tube comes with all the pieces and parts you need to install. So what you have to end up buying to install this is the disconnect, the breaker, the wire, the liquid tight to get to that. You have to get the wall mount. If you want to mount it on a wall, you could build a pad or set it on a cement pad. We have a lot of snow here, so we picked up a wall mount. I believe it was about 60 bucks. We'll try to leave a link down below. And then we also picked up the this here. So this is a bunch of pieces and parts that end up making a little plastic gutter outside to cover the line set. So when we come out through the wall, there's a piece here that goes on the wall, and this will dress it up, keep it from being exposed to the weather as much. This was fairly inexpensive, so we picked that up. I do want to mention that the vendor that we purchased our Mr. Cool from told me I would need to order a line set. So they sold me a second line set kit. But when I opened the box for the Mr. Cool, it had a line set and everything in it. So check that out before you buy one yourself, because I don't need two line sets, but it did come, the second line set did come with the cable to go between the indoor unit and the outdoor unit. So we would have needed to buy that anyway. So the price probably, really wasn't that bad. So I think that's a general overview of what we got here. We're gonna go ahead and start working on getting this installed. We're gonna bring you along for that. First thing we're gonna do is get some electrical out to the disconnect, and then we're gonna go ahead and get our wall mount figured out, get our pieces hung, and get this going. So hold on a minute, we're gonna get you set up. We'll go over there and we'll get going on that. All right, so we've gone ahead and we've got our 12 gauge wire in here, and we've made our connections to our breaker and our ground. You'll notice it comes in right down here in the bottom, and it comes up around. It goes to this breaker right here. This is our mini split breaker. You'll notice I've put some red tape on the white wire. This is what's called a 240 volt circuit, not a 120 240. So there is no neutral to this circuit. The mini split uses 240 volts. So between here and here is 240, and there's a ground to the ground bus bar for safety. So the mini split does not use 120 volts anywhere. Just to point out that this panel, this silver rail here is one leg, your black leg. This silver rail over here is your other leg, your red leg. So line 1, line 2. In between those two, you have 240 volts. So you'll notice every other one is the opposite line. So this breaker actually grabs two of them, which gives us 240 volts out the breaker into our mini split. So we got our indoor unit up here on the workbench. This is the side that goes against the wall. This is the bottom of it. We've got our book open, in the book you pick the model you have. You got to pay attention to the model you have. We have the 12,000 model. It's going to show us where to drill our hole to line up with these tubes. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this mounting bracket off. We're going to lay it up on the wall, figure out where we want it to line up with the stud so our pipes miss the stud, and we'll take you along for that. So hold on while we get you set up and we'll be right back. Okay, so we've gone ahead and mounted our plate. We've screwed into the studs, and in our case we have 3/4 inch wood on the wall, so we don't need anchors on the other side. They do give you arrows where they want you to mount the screws near the attachment points. We've put in 6 screws in there. That's going to hold the indoor unit. The indoor unit does not weigh a whole lot. So now what we're going to do is we're going to measure out the hole that we have to drill. And on the 12K model, they want us to go 5.05 inches from the center line right here to the center of the hole. So 0.5 is almost, it's about a 1/16 of an inch, not even quite. So we're going to go right about there. And then they want us to be, they want the hole to be 1.7 inches from the bottom of the mini split up, which is about a 1/4 inch below this. So we're going to go ahead and level across, make a little mark, and we know we're about a 1/4 inch below that. So we're going to go and measure up from that, and 0.75 is 3/4. So we're going to go just under 3/4. We want to allow our 1/4 inch. So we're going to go right about there, and that's where we're going to drill our hole. Now, the hole, we'll show you when we drill it, has to be sloped downhill so it'll drain. They do give you a through the wall thimble that goes in here. And if you can keep your hole on this Mr. Cool model anyways, if you keep your hole on the right hand side, all of the pipes on the mini split fit right out through the wall. If you put your hole over here on the back of the mini split, we can pan around and show you, all the connectors are right on this edge, meaning that your actual connections to your line set are going to start to bend right at the coupling and out through the wall. So for my money anyways, it seems like it's going to be easier to go through the wall on the right hand side of the unit. So let me spin around and show you what I'm talking about there, now that we got the back plate off. So hold on, see if we can not make you too dizzy. Okay, so this is the back of the unit. This would be the right hand side when it's on the wall. So this is back to you, bottom up. And you'll see how these pipes right here, these are the pipes that go to the unit. And you see how the connections are way over here on this end? So if we wanted to come out through the wall right here, we'd have to bend these pipes, and these couplers would be in the wall. So if we can bend them back here, I think it's going to be a lot easier to get through the wall, in my opinion. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and get the hole drilled. Okay, so we've drilled our hole, 2.5 inch hole per the manual, and we kept it down. They call for 0.2 to 0.3 inches of downslope as it goes through the wall. We have a 3/4 inch sheeting on this side, 1/2 inch on the other, so we basically step down about 1/2 inch as we drilled out through. That's going to allow everything to run downhill, and the reason for that is you've got a drain in there that drains the condensate when it's in, cooling mode or dry mode. And that has to continually drain down. You don't want any sags to create any traps in there. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our wire hooked up to our indoor unit and get our pipe bent so we can slide it onto its mount and out through the wall. All right, so now what we're doing is we're wiring up our electrical to our indoor head. So when we put it on the wall, we can push everything out through the hole at once rather than having to fish the wire in later. Basically the lid snaps down right here and here. So we snap the lid open, and we've got our wire, which has the right ends on it. This particular wire that they sold me has pins on one end and forks on the other. The forks are for the outside unit, the pins are for the inside unit. There's screws 1, 2, and 3, and a ground screw. We're going to go ahead and just go white, black, and red, and then ground. So that's how we're going to wire it up. And the most important thing here is to remember what you did in here so you can mirror it outside. In other words, pin 1 in here wants to go to pin 1 outside. Not a ton of room in here, but it's not too bad. All right, now we're going to put our strain relief back in. We're going to pull our wire up enough that the jacket is inside the unit. We don't want the strain relief just on the conductors. We want the black jacket up in there too. Okay. Like I mentioned before, this is kind of a tight spot. You can get in there, but a little bit of diligent fiddling. There we go. Everything started. Yeah, we'll try to tip this up and give you a better shot of what we did here. I know it's hard for you to see what I'm doing at this angle. Okay, so let's see if we can do this. If we tip you up like this, get a lid opened up out of the way. Yeah, there you go. So here's your terminal block for your wiring. This is a strain relief down in this hole I was talking about. You know, I've got the black jacket underneath the strain relief. So we're just going to fold these down like that, and we're going to put the cover back on. And we'll get this thing ready to go on the wall. Okay, so what we've done is we've prepped our mini split by gently bending the line set right out the back like we want it. And we've got a cord on there. We're going to stick our power cord out through the wall first. And you'll notice we've put a piece of electrical tape around everything just to kind of hold it where we want it. And now we're going to go ahead and gently guide all this out through the wall. Basically hooks on up there like that and snaps in place right down in here on that bracket. So we're going to just basically rock it in like that. Indoor unit is completely done. Now we're going to move outside. We're going to get our outdoor unit mounted and run our line set, and we'll see if it works. All right, so we've gone ahead and mounted our wall bracket. Basically what we did is we located our studs and we put a couple bolts into studs. We spaced these according to the outdoor unit, which you'll see in a minute. And then we put a leg bolt into each one too to keep them from moving around, so everything is stable and locked in. And you can see we've got our pipes out through the wall. And we've got to start on our trough. We stopped here because we're going to wait until we get the outdoor unit mounted, and we're going to see where we're putting the pipe. In our case, we have a 25-foot line set, and we have to use up that excess. So we'll probably end up just coiling it up in here and coming up into the unit, but we don't want to go any farther. The drain line will end up coming out through the bottom right here, which you'll see in a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and get you set up where you can watch what we're doing. And Sue and I are going to go ahead and install the outdoor unit on the wall mount. So hold on, and we'll be right back.
Go your way.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start putting our bolts in. And you'll notice we mounted this quite high, and the biggest reason for that is that we get a lot of snow here, and this is out back. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So we figured we wanted to put it up in the air where it wouldn't be a problem. You notice it was a little bit of a challenge getting it up there. The thing does have a little bit of weight to it. I'm gonna guess probably about 70 pounds. All right, so the outdoor unit is all mounted. So now what we're going to do is we're going to get our line set out here, and we're going to make our connections on our line set and figure out exactly what we're doing with the excess. You can cut them and reflare them if you have all the tools to do that, but the flare is one of the most delicate things on the mini splits because of the pressure. So we're going to go ahead and just coil it up and hang it up here out of the way. The other thing I would point out about that is do read your manual if you are going to cut and flare it, because I do believe you'll find there's a minimum length of line set that you're required to have to make this work properly. Alright, so we're going to make up our connection on our line set here, and then we'll run the line set through our trough, and you'll see what we're doing here in a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and make this one up. We're not going to explain a lot on this one because it's up on a ladder. It's kind of hard to get at. We'll really bring you into detail when we get to the side of the mini split. Alright, so now we're going to make up our line set on the side of the house inside our trough. I haven't actually taken this apart yet, but I'm told that there could be a little bit of nitrogen in here, so just kind of be prepared for a little bit of, outgassing when you take these covers off. I don't know if you can hear that, but it is definitely releasing a lot of pressure. So we're going to let that bleed off. And I'm going to take the big one off. Get them separated a little bit so we can work. Get rid of those covers. We're going to get our line set up here. I'm going to do a big one first. I'm going to go ahead and straighten that up some. And there's a plastic cover inside here that we got to take out. And then what we got is we got some Nylog Blue. And we want to put this on the threads and on the flare and on the back side of the flare nut. We don't want to get it in the pipe necessarily, but we want to put a little bit on there so that when the nut turns, it doesn't have as much friction, if you will. I'm going to put just a little bit inside the flare, just like that. Again, using our finger to make sure we get it out of the pipe. And then we're going to put a little on this side of the flare. And then we're going to make up our flare. So in this case, we're just going to hold everything lined up like that. I'm going to go ahead and run the nut up. The nut should go all the way by hand. If it doesn't go all the way by hand, you probably don't have your flare straight. So then we're going to use our adjustable wrenches here. I do not have a open-ended torque wrench, so we're just going to go good and tight. And the big key here is not to turn this one. So you want to hold your top wrench so that your bottom flare doesn't twist your top pipe and cause it problems. And that's good and tight. Now we're going to repeat the process on the small one. We're going to call that good and tight. So now what we have to do, we have to come back, we have to dress these cables up, these line sets up into our trough here, and we have to figure out how we're doing the coil and get them connected. So we're going to get a little bit ahead here, and we'll bring you back as soon as we're ready to connect them to the mini split and show you what we've done. Alright, so we got a pretty good handle on what we're doing with our line set. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hook up the two lines on the mini split itself. So we're going to go get some tools. A pair of vice grips, and we'll show you why in a minute, and the adjustable wrenches, which we already have. We're going to go ahead and get this hooked up. Alright, so we've got our lines routed about how we want them. We'll clean them up a little bit later. We're going to give you some wrap to wrap them, keep the insulation protected from the UV. We're going to go ahead and tape that up with some electrical tape or Gorilla tape or something that'll be a little bit weatherproof, make it look a little neater. We'll show you all that when it's done. But now what we're going to do is we're going to make our connections on our mini split. So we're going to start with our big one. I'm going to take the plug out of the big line, just like we did up top. We're going to use our same Nylog Blue. Same thing, we're going to put a little bit on the actual flare, just to kind of reduce friction. And put a little on the pipe behind the nut, and a little on the inside of the pipe. I'm going to set that out of the way. And I use our finger to get it in there, but keep it out of the pipe, like that. Now, it's going to be a little hard for me to do this and you to see all at the same time, but that's kind of the plan, is that we're going to do something. Something about like that, I think. See if we can get that folded back up around. So what we're shooting for is that pipe to set flat on that flare. Something just like that. And then that nut should run down all the way by hand. And we're going to do the same to the little one. Okay, so what we're going to do, because we don't want to put a lot of stress on that valve on the mini split, we're going to lightly put a pair of vice grips on there, about like that. That gives us something to hold pressure against while we tighten our flare nut. And we're going to just crank that up. And then we're going to do the same thing to the little one. Then we're going to go ahead and bring you back and show you how to vacuum this down. So hold on and we'll be right back. Alright, so we've got our line set hooked up. We've gone ahead and put our gauges on and our micron vacuum gauge. And we've got our vacuum pump hooked up. Let me see if I can get you a shot of the vacuum pump. It's sitting down there on the ground, just doing its thing. There it is down there. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to get down to under 500 microns of vacuum. I know a lot of the installs I've watched, they say that you can just run the vacuum pump for 15 minutes. But the gauge is like 140 bucks. It seemed like cheap insurance. So we're going to go ahead and let this run. We're going to time lapse through this, and we'll come back when we hit 500 microns. Alright, so we're about 6 minutes in and we're at 490 microns. We're going to keep going. We're going to let it go for like 20 or 30 minutes because the lower that number the better. And then what we'll end up doing is going to shut our valve down here on our gauges, which I'll show you in a minute. And we're going to let it set for about 20 minutes and see if we get any leak down, and then we'll go from there. All right, we've been going for quite a while now, and you'll see we're at 260 microns. And that seems to be as low as we're going to get. We've been vacuuming for 44 minutes. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to close the blue valve down here. Let's see if we can do this. So we're going to close this blue valve. And we're going to shut off the vacuum pump now. And we're going to let it set and see if this gauge stays down. If that gauge stays down, then we'll presumably have no leaks, and we'll go ahead and charge the Freon and show you how to do that. So we'll be back as soon as we get, there we go, there's a better shot of the gauge. You see it's just a little below zero, and that's what we're kind of watching for. And once that goes, probably like 30 minutes, we'll bring you back and we'll show you putting a little gas in and unhooking everything. All right guys, so the battery went dead in the other camera. As I mentioned in the last one, we're setting at 260 microns. We're setting below zero on the vacuum. And I wanted to point out that we got our electrical done up in here. It's a little hard to see, but you see we got 1, 2, and 3, just like we did inside. L1 and L2, which is our 240 volt from our disconnect, and then our 2 grounds down in here. So just make sure that, you know, if you use, like inside we went white for 1, black for 2, and red for 3. We do the same out here. We will have to finish insulating our line set after everything's done. And we've got our disconnect mounted, except for there's actually no ground lug inside this disconnect box. So we're going to have to go back to the electrical supply house and get a ground lug to put in there, or a ground bar, and get that set up. And yeah, so we're just going to give this probably about another 15 minutes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come back and we're going to show you how to actually put a little pressure in the system, just enough so that we can unhook this connection under a pressure, not a vacuum. Because if we break it now, that little Schrader valve is going to leak just a little, and it would suck in just a little humid air. If we open this set screw just a little bit and bring our pressure up to like 1 or 2 pounds, then when we disconnect that, we lose the pressure out of the system. We don't suck anything in. Okay, so we've been long enough now. What we're going to do is we're going to crack this valve right here. We'll put some pressure into the system, back around through this pipe and out through our blue hose and into our gauge. So we're going to watch our gauge, and we're going to let it get up to, you know, probably 1 or 2 pounds. All right, we're going to stop there. And we're going to disconnect our gauge, and we're going to fire this up. So what we're going to do is we're going to unscrew this one. We're going to open both of these up all the way, and you can hear you can see the actual pipe getting frosty from the that one's all the way. And I'm going to go all the way on this one. All right, so we're going to put our caps on that. We're going to turn our disconnect on, and we'll bring you inside and you can see what happens. All right, so we're back inside now. We got batteries in our remote. We're going to go ahead and turn the power on and see what happens. Now we do have to put the Wi-Fi module in this. We'll probably do another video a little later on about actually connecting the Wi-Fi to the house and the cell phone. Okay, so as you can see, hopefully, it is powering up. It's set for 75. And you probably can't hear it on this, but the outdoor unit is ramping up. So that wraps this up. It's running, it's blowing good hot air. It's 70 degrees in here. We'll come back and we'll do a follow-up video, explain some of the functionality of this that we think actually makes it a little bit better value than like a Fujitsu, for example. But for now, that's it. We're going to enjoy our nice warm air. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Thank you.